Evil is never more sinister than when it turns upon children. Pharaoh enslaved the children in Egypt. Idolaters sacrificed the children in Carthage. Herod murdered the children in Israel. Hitler experimented with the children in Germany. Today, a subtle high-tech enemy is corrupting the children in America. The following is part of a 4-tape series entitled The High-Tech Corruption of America's Children. This is program number 2. Welcome to the New Age Public Schools.
An alarm is sounding in America's high-tech schools. Test scores are plummeting. Schoolyard crimes are soaring. Today's children live in a world of misplaced values. There are no goals. Barbara Walters said, "Our children are becoming a generation of undisciplined, cultured barbarians." Why? Teachers complain parents are unsupportive, while parents say teachers are unconcerned. But others feel the real corrupter of our children is the textbooks. Among these is Mel Gabler, the top textbook activist in America. The Longview, Texas resident has appeared on 60 Minutes, The Today Show, and Nightline.
Until our son awakened us, we had total confidence in the schools and in the textbooks. I thought every textbook was perfect down to the last period and comma. But I found out different. For instance, for 30 years we've been discovering errors and flaws. This year alone, after the professionals had declared 6 high school American history texts perfect, ready for the classroom, we found 231 factual errors in those 6 books. That is, after the publishers had a chance to re-edit their own books to find out if they might have any flaws they'd like to correct, the state gives them this opportunity. They found 14 of 249 that we had found. The Texas Education Agency found 1 more flaw. The State Textbook Committee found none. The Texas Council for Social Studies found none. But we found, as I said, 249. One, for instance, one of the history texts says that Sputnik was the Soviet Union's first intercontinental ballistic missile, and it carried a nuclear warhead, rather than saying it was their first space vehicle. That's quite a bit far off. Another one, even worse, is the fact that one of the books says that Truman quickly ended the war in Korea by dropping the bomb, the atomic bomb, in Korea. First place, it wasn't ended quickly, and the second place, it was over Japan.
Many schools refuse to allow parents to see their children's books. Parents are being told their children cannot bring them home because there's a shortage of textbooks.
Of course, it's not a true statement, because when the state adopts books, they adopt 110% of enrollment. And if they need more books, they can always buy more books after they've once adopted a book. The main thing is schools do not want parents looking at books, and that makes you immediately suspicious what's in the books that they don't want parents to see. But this is a trend that's going on more and more across the nation. More and more students are not permitted to take their books home because too often the parents have objected.
It appears today's textbooks are a rerun of the time of Manasseh and his influence in the 7th century when he used witchcraft and dealt with familiar spirits.
We have also compared tactics for thinking right alongside a witch's Bible. Again, the witch's Bible talks about using a strong visual imagination. Every spell is in effect the ritual manipulation of symbols. Throughout tactics, the students are asked to make their images more symbolic. The students are to say affirmations. "I am thinking" is one of the most powerful tools we can use to accomplish goals. That's a quote in tactics.
This is a story about a witch, which is an introduction to the next page, and the next page has a witch license application for the student to fill out. Witch license application. The student is to fill this application out in the classroom. And the name of this book Or rather, I should say, this is a 6th grade book from a major publisher, widely used.
The Apostle Paul expressed the fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted.
This is Tactics for Thinking. Supposedly, it's a thinking skills program. We have compared Tactics for Thinking side by side with the Satanic Bible. Again, over and over in Tactics, throughout Tactics, students are to create mental pictures, create strong mental images for goals, conjure up feelings, generate feelings, highlight the sensations, the emotions. And you would find in the Satanic Bible that those are the ingredients used in the performance of satanic magic. The Satanic Bible states, anything which serves to intensify the emotions during a ritual will contribute to its success. These capable witches and warlocks, these natural magicians, are employing the magical ingredient known as imagery, and the success of any ritual depends on it. A lot of this is ritualism that is taking place, such as this program in Tactics. The students are to develop strong mental images for their goals, and then they're to actually visualize them into being. Quote, have students visualize themselves completing the goal. Quote, daily imagine yourself accomplishing your goal. Have students visualize the whole class achieving this goal. End of quote. The Satanic Bible says, the imagery used by the sorcerer is a working mechanism for material reality. It again is that belief that you can manipulate objects or beliefs into reality. And again, it is a witchcraft technique being taught. And one of the, again, a disturbing aspect is Tactics for Thinking says the learning to learn skills, which is just what I presented, they should be the first line of business in the classroom. They form the basis for all instruction. So this ritualism or satanic magic is being taught, and Tactics for Thinking says this should be the first line of business in the classroom. And then as well with this same textbook, Discover Skills for Life, we have compared it with the book Secrets of Shamanism. Shamanism is witch doctor techniques. The textbook says, think of a big red apple, feel the smooth skin, smell its sweetness, take a bite and imagine the taste as the juice rolls over the tongue. They're to use all their senses. Well, this book, Secrets of Shamanism, says, recreate an image of an apple, feel the fruit, smell the fruit, take a bite, focus on the sense of taste. Hear the crunch as you chewed the bite. That is nearly a case of plagiarism. Join Pumsey in a self-esteem adventure of positive thinking skills, cognitive mental health curriculum for children of many ages. And that is one complaint that parents are having, that we're teaching mental health in the classroom when we should be spending time on academics. Even for the youngest ages, Pumsey is teaching guided imagery. This was a very beginning curriculum of Pumsey for ages 5 and 6. And students are told to enter Pumsey's cave and meet someone special. Give the person a rainbow stone. Make a rainbow. That's for ages 5 and 6. But I find a parallel in this book, The Way of the Shaman. Again, a shaman is just a witch doctor. Quote, the best known way to acquire a guardian spirit is in a spirit quest in a remote place in the wilderness. The location may be a cave. Throughout Pumsey, the students are to produce in their minds 8 different mind pictures. in this curriculum, and each one ends with a chant for the day. Religion is being smuggled into the schools. In fact, Jack Canfield stated, he's a popular New Ager who wrote articles in the New Age magazine. He gave advice, if you're a teacher in the public schools, don't call it meditation, call it centering.
But then immediately after World War II, the U.S. government and some publishers and so forth had a meeting at which they determined to reduce the amount of national, or what we would call patriotism in the books, and increase the amount of one-worldism or globalism. For instance, This Week magazine back in the 60s made a survey of 14 old U.S. history texts from prior to 1920 and 45 new American history texts since 1920. And when they checked famous sayings like Patrick Henry's saying, give me liberty or give me death, or Nathan Hale, I regret to have but one life to lose for my country, or David Lawrence, don't give up the ship, and other statements like that. On the average, they found those in about 12 of the 14 old books, but on average about 2 of the 45 new. In other words, anything emotional, anything patriotic has pretty well been censored.
Then there's also a program called Do So, which is Developing Understanding of Self and Others. It is a program, in many cases, the counselors come in and teach this program. It's a self-esteem program. Do So has 42 guided fantasies that the children are led on. And in preparation for these fantasies, the students are to lie on their backs on the floor, to put their heads down on their desk and close their eyes. They are led through a series of deep breathing exercises. And they are to tense and then relax all the muscle groups. And then they're led on one of these 42 guided fantasies. The first one, the children are led to Aquatron, a place inside themselves, and the children are told to see themselves as an animal of any kind. These are quite occultic techniques that are being used here. Discover Skills for Life. This is a 5th grade teacher's edition, and it's actually part of a drug education program. On our first sheet, we have compared this one relaxation exercise with the book Self-Hypnotism. We've laid it out side by side, and I'll just quote briefly from the textbook, and then I'll quote briefly from Self-Hypnotism. And I'll do this side by side so you can hear if the content's identical. Have students sit comfortably. A comfortable position should be taken. Fix your eyes on a focal point. Use some object for eye fixation. Now relax the muscles in your stomach and chest, across your shoulders, through your arms, through your fingers. Then let your stomach and abdominal muscles relax, falling with the chest, continue with the arms from the shoulders to the fingertips. Now pretend you're in a quiet, safe place in the country, rippling water in a nearby stream. Imagine yourself as being someplace where you could relax, at a lake or on the sea. Even the most disturbing aspect is in this teacher's edition in how the teachers are instructed to complete the activity. Quote, using the same even soft tone, invite the students back to the classroom. That is very disturbing. Apparently they've gone somewhere, even though they weren't physically dismissed from the classroom. And on page 18 of this same textbook, it says, end slowly by having students, quote unquote, return to the classroom.
Textbooks confirm the biblical charge. Even now, are there many antichrists?
I do have a music book here for 6th grade, very widely used. And on pages 58 And 59, we have a traditional old song, Sons of Men Behold. The words in the song all right, but across the top of the page, you'll find the wise men, the Star of the East, and then a piece of cardboard here to cover what the book actually had in it. I'll lift the cardboard so you can see what the book is depicting, a dead Christ. If they do mention the Bible or Christianity, they present it in a bad light. For instance, one very simple way of this being done was in the 9th grade United States history. This is about Moses crossing the Red Sea. Moses may have led them across some shallow swamps and into the Sinai Desert. The Hebrews call these swamps the Sea of Reeds because of the tall grass that grew in them. It may be that the Sea of Reeds was later called the Red Sea by mistake. This is on page 186 of this particular book. We see material about the tree myths, talking about the tree in Eden. And it is emphasized as this being a myth because the whole chapter is on myths. In fact, the name of the chapter is Mythology and Psychology. And as we go through this, we find that myths give the picture of the world as having fallen from a perfect state. The evil of the world, according to these traditions, resulted from man's failure to obey the will of God. And it goes on to say that this is essentially the mythological standard of Christianity. Notice that mythological stand.
The prophet Ezekiel cried, "They fill the land with violence." We might well echo that cry today.
And one of the major publishers in their language grammar book, in the teacher's instructions, suggested that the teacher have the students check this particular book out of their school library and write their poems or model their poems after those in this book. And they're all takeoffs from Mother Goose rhymes. For instance, this one is, "Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Snap the blade and give it a flick. Grab the purse, it's easily done. Then just for kicks, just for fun, plunge the knife and cut and run." There's the picture of the knife. And this came out of a middle school library. Here's some more. "Christmas is coming. The advertising's fat. Please to put $1 in the old man's hat. If you haven't got $1, then half will have to do. If you haven't got a half a buck, then God mug you." This particular song is about 3 brothers. And these 3 brothers, 2 of them robbed to support the 3rd one. The song is called Henry Martin. But the 2 brothers robbed so they can support the 3rd one. And that's presented to the students as though that were a legitimate thing to do.
School books have abandoned America's traditional value that if any will not work, he should not eat.
And of course that leaves the door wide open for such things as we have in this particular book right here. This book has a welfare application form for 9th grade students. This is a course to teach citizenship. 9th grade student citizenship course, welfare application form. And the rest of the form is on the following pages. It's not just an introduction to it. There's the complete form.
We've lost sight of the principle of actively studying to show ourselves approved. For the New Age religion commands to passively meditate. This is undermining learning.
This is another textbook. It's a health textbook. Copyright 1979. Health, a Way of Life. And this is Scott Forsman. Again, in this health textbook, we have Herbert Benson's relaxation response. What are alternatives to taking drugs? The relaxation response. You'll find the same techniques in yoga, same exercise laid out here that you could read. And again, the whole intent of these occultic techniques are to produce that passive mind. Let me show you a textbook called Health and Safety, copyright 1987. This is an exercise by Dr. Herbert Benson, the relaxation response. And here the students are to go through the relaxation exercise, sit quietly in a comfortable place, close your eyes, deeply relax all your muscles, breathe through your nose. As you breathe out, say the word one silently to yourself. Continue for 10 to 20 minutes. Maintain a passive attitude and let relaxation occur at its own pace. Return to repeating the word one. When distracting thoughts occur, try to ignore them by not dwelling on them. Page 110 on meditation, the four basic elements. The third element is a passive attitude. It is an emptying of all thoughts and distractions from one's mind. A passive attitude appears to be the most essential factor in eliciting the relaxation response. This is not only dangerous to empty one's mind, but also anti-educational. Education requires mental activity.
When former U.S. Secretary of Education William Bennett was asked why Germans were doing so much better in math than American students, he replied, because they are teaching math, and we're asking students how they feel about math. While American students simply do not have enough time for math, they are self-esteeming up a storm and working on their positive self-image.
And along with this, I mentioned these programs are self-esteem program. That's probably one of the most dangerous things being taught in the United States today. But how do you attack teaching self-esteem? Immediately, you're asked, well, you mean you don't want students to feel good about themselves? But the problem is they never distinguish between earned self-esteem and self-esteem awarded to the student without him having earned it. There are many of these type of programs, DUSA, POMSI, and as I mentioned, the 3 Quest programs, Meology, just go on and on.
In our textbooks, the biblical standard of abstaining from fornication has been replaced by the New Age concept of, if it feels good, do it. A California sex education curriculum for an elementary school system specifies that children will develop an understanding of homosexuality. They view films, act out homosexual roles, and take a test on what they've learned. 10-year-olds are awarded gold stars if they do well in homosexual role-playing.
Dr. Jacqueline Kaysen is a professor at Humboldt University, Humboldt County, California. She made a study of Humboldt County because they had had 10 times as much funding for family life, for sex ed courses, as the nation had on average. So over a period of time, she checked, and the rate of pregnancies and abortions and so forth had increased, I think, 15 times as much in Humboldt County as they had in the rest of the nation.
In 1955, there were 5 venereal diseases. Today, there are 50, including AIDS. Every 24 hours, 64,000 American youth are infected with a venereal disease. In 1970, 1/3 of teen births occurred out of marriage. Now, 2/3 do, despite 1 million abortions. Textbook writers do not seem to have learned from crumbling empires of the past like Israel, where every man did that which was right in his own eyes.
But the one that disturbs me the most is this one. And this is under a sociological function of myths. Quote, an excellent example is the 10 Commandments. Many of the rules included in this code of behavior are essentially the existence of an orderly community. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. But they list this under sociological function of myths. Quest is one of the so-called drug programs which has very little drug education in them, because it's typical of nearly all the drug education programs on the market. They really should be called self-esteem programs. Sometimes they're used as character education or moral education. Most of the time, for drug education, they're what they call non-directive, non-judgmental. That is, you never tell the student something is wrong. You only tell him information to let the student decide for himself. In other words, it's strictly a matter of choice, because it's not fair to the student to tell him something is wrong, because that way you're forcing it on him. You must let the student decide for himself. Yes, in other words, you put children adrift in boats and don't give them directions. Don't tell them that there's a reef out there. Don't tell them where the danger spots are. And just let them make their own choices. And this parallels exactly what's happening on a moral plane in the schools. We're letting children I mean, from the first grade on up, make their own moral decision, because they say if they're taught that, that's been forced on the child, whether it's the parents, the teacher, Sunday school teacher, preacher, or whoever. It's been forced on the child, so it's not a genuine value. See, that's part of values clarification. So the child must be allowed to make his or her own decision. And so when you compare it to a boat where the children can travel, the wind driving them, whether there's a reef there or not, the children are unsuspecting. They don't know there's a reef out there that would sink their boat. They have no way of knowing, but they're to make their own choice. And that's a rather ridiculous situation, but that's exactly what we're doing to the children on a moral basis.
In King David's book of Psalms, God asked, "Who will rise up for me against the evildoers, or who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity?"
Now, there are several things you can do, and I think that Norm and I have proven that in 30 years, that ordinary people with no special skills can have an impact by being persistent. God has to do the work, not us. We just have to be available. But for one thing that parents can do is to look at the textbook. Another important thing is attend school board meetings. Parents should attend school board meetings, because school board members have told us that they would vote differently if there are even one or two parents there.
In Coleman, Alabama, one father got concerned about the Do So program that was being taught his child in school. He went to his pastor. They called a meeting. 650 concerned parents showed up, and the school board promptly removed the objectionable material from the curriculum.
Also, I should say, stay on good terms with your teacher, because many of the teachers are just as concerned as we are. And so, we're not teacher bashers, because we have many good teachers who are still trying to make up for these books, and we're grateful for that.
The best way to protect a child's mind from error is to fill it with truth. Jesus Christ said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Lead the child to know Him. Then see to it that the child studies the Bible faithfully in Sunday school and in the home. This will protect him from the high-tech corruption in our world.